Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Frank Analysis. I am your host, Franco, and I'm joined again by my friends Polly, aka Shadowband Anti-Warist, aka Shadowband Refugee, and we have Jacksith here. And we're going to talk about natural law and why natural law should be known by people who are involved in politics, involved in truth seeking, activists, because and this is all going to make sense. We should all ask ourselves constantly. We should be aware of ourselves. We should be mindful. Are we in a cult? Am I participating in some kind of group think right now? Because I'm sure a lot of people in the audience here would agree that Blue No Matter Who is a cult. Uh, a lot of mainstream media viewers are in a cult. Um, Make America Great Again, MAGA, that's a cult. A lot of communist factions are in a cult. What else? There's plenty of cults out there. And what cults do is it causes people to be tribal. It prevents them from seeing the truth. It puts blindfolders on. And then you end up cheering for the wrong thing. And it goes against your best interest. So Jack and Shadow, you guys can go ahead and what do you guys think of that? Is that pretty accurate to say what the way I put it?
Yeah. So, and really, the easiest way that I would explain it is, so people get confused on what's called common law, which that'd be your courthouses, things like that, which we can definitely go into because there's an element of that I think people don't know. But with natural law, it's dealing with men and women, right? So it's not statutory. It's actual real living people. So we have natural law, which is the jurisdiction of the living, right? Those that are alive. You have common law, which is the jurisdiction of the dead. Now I'll go into how that forms later on, but basically, natural law is known by other terms such as God's law. It's also known as the law of cause and effect. And basically, what natural law is it is what you put out, you get, right? So it goes into thoughts, feelings, actions, all of that, because even thinking something like what you do can cause things to happen in the real world, but more so the principles of natural law are very easy to comprehend, and they're just like the basic things that we would all want to know. And that's that, first off, principles are key, and without principles you can have no understanding under natural law, because natural law, your principles are basically what governs that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then also, when it comes to natural law, uh, you know it can't be changed because it just is. So like the way I look at natural law is, I think cause and effect is probably the easiest way to explain it, because it's just what you put out. That's what, like, what you manifest, right? So that also gets into like laws of attraction and things like that as well.
Yeah, I would agree with both of what you said, of what you both said. So, I've had experiences in my life where I can't fucking be militantly atheist, right? Like I've never been able to be militantly atheist because of certain experiences that I've had in my life, like through like drug use and shit, right? So I know there's a fifth element that a fifth element that we're missing, right? Our spirit. And when I saw like magical symbols being used throughout the ages, right? There's certain fucking symbols that just happen to be on certain buildings, on certain seals of certain empires, right? Like there's eagles, there's double-headed eagles, there's snakes, there's bulls, there's all these different symbols that they use for strength and power in certain aspects, right? And then there's also like triangles with circles around them, right? Like our money has that kind of shit on it, right? So it makes me wonder what is being tapped into when they are calling upon those ancient forces, right? And right, like we know that generational trauma exists, right? Like survivors of the death camps and shit, their children exhibit the same type of trauma in the brain, right? And like if that's the case, then we have a memory that's beyond our own selves. We have like a DNA memory, possibly, right? So if we have a DNA memory, I I theorized that our DNA gets excited and we view certain symbols and they remind us of something in our far past, in our ancestors' far past, and that's how we can latch onto it, right? So like AA, they use a triangle with a symbol or with a circle in the middle, and it's pointed upwards, right? That's the sacred masculine, right? And it's all about like being an authoritarian, and like it's very, it's right brain kind of thinking, right? And then there's other different groups that use an inverted triangle, which has the point down, right? And that's a sacred feminine. So all of these different things are part of an occult knowledge, right? Like we call it law, we call it natural law. We also call it the laws of nature, right? Because magic is just another word for using the laws of nature, right? So I think these are hidden knowledges, right? Occulted means to be obscured from view, right? And being that we call upon it, I think we need to learn how to act, right? And when we know there's a spell being cast upon us, right? Like it's also brainwashing, right? Like so, like nationalism. This is a concept of fucking brainwashing, right? We don't have like any real connection to this nation state or anything like that, but we think we do because over however many generations we become attached to this idea that means nothing, right? And there's very powerful people that can use that against us, right? So like we can get into like more of the specifics, but basically I'm just saying this is not just natural law, but this is the laws of nature. This is the occult. This is the real religion that runs the planet, right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Use it against us. We can know about it and we can use it to empower ourselves and each other and leave them out of the loop.
And that is, in Shadow, what you said there is key, is that one of the biggest things that people really kind of maybe shudder away from natural law from is also the fact that it deals with natural law is also called consequentialism, because everything you do, like basically, like if you understand natural law, you understand that every action you do, even thoughts, because thoughts can manifest into actions and all sorts of things, but you take responsibility for your shit. That's the like one of the first like things when I was getting into natural law is I was realizing is self-work is key on this, because you no longer are able to externalize and put blame on things when you understand that everything has a remedy, right? Everything in this universe, like when we think that we get like a parking ticket or we get something like that, those are just offers. And sort of what I'm getting at is that it's empowering when you realize that everything has a remedy, because since I've been studying natural law, like when I say studying, I'm waking up to what was and is and has always been. The more I'm realizing that there's been so many times that I didn't see things for an offer for what they were, right? So like, I'll just give an example. When you walk up to a store and if it says, please wear a mask, that's an offer. You don't have to comply with that. And under natural law, more so. But people don't understand that when those signs are up there, that's an offer, and they go, oh, the sign's up there, so I need to comply with this authority, which is this thing written on a note that says, mask enforcement or mask whatever, and they do it. Whereas if you realize the remedy in there is that you have an option not to. and so it really changes like kind of how you see a lot of things in the world.
So at the most basic level, like if you were to explain to somebody that never has heard of natural law before, how would you guys explain that to them?
Okay, so we think of gravity, right, as a natural law, right? A law of nature. That's why I say the laws of nature, right? Because you can believe all that you want, that you can jump off the roof and have no consequences, no ill consequences, that you can fly. But the laws of nature are going to make sure that you pay a consequence for jumping off the roof, right? So I think I think it's more apt to call it the laws of nature, honestly, because nature etymologically, is that how you say it? Etymologically, I'm not sure.
There you
go. It traces back to the Egyptian word for the god above all gods, even above Ra, Netir. So this is an ancient concept.
And it's even deeper, Franco, and because what has happened is basically because natural law is, and a lot of the occultists and people that are hiding this knowledge, which again, occult itself is not a bad word, it just means hidden. So the occultists, like, and again, the way that our systems are structured, they know about natural law. Like courts know about natural law. In fact, crossing jurisdictions, meaning you go into a courtroom and you're summoned, right? Because think about it, under common law, you're considered dead. You're the entity on the paper, your government name. So that person is summoned because, like, basically what I'm getting at is the whole courtroom procedure is almost like it's magic. Like it's a form of magic, the whole summoning process. And then that gets into like maritime law, and where a lot of this stuff comes from is basically because natural law exists, they had to do a mirror inversion with common law, meaning there's a reflected version of natural law inside of common law. Because basically there has to be remedy, like I was saying earlier. And again, remedy is just something to, if you're going through something or a way through something, you can get into the contract and tort types of that, but more so just deals with there's a solution. There has to be a solution for something like that is built in, because basically these same systems that seek to imprison and enslave us, they know this, so they basically have to almost get our consent through a roundabout manner, just with like making it, you assume authority is given by them. And so it's kind of powerful once you realize that because of this natural system of the laws of nature, that an entire whole thing with common law had to be erected.
Yes.
What was that thing with common law?
So for anyone getting into common law, I would suggest picking up a copy of Black's. Black's is a legal dictionary, which is key to understanding pretty much any legalese. So when it was established is a great question, because I think you could put that all the way back to probably the Roman Empire, if not further. But you could also put it throughout, basically reading the Bible. Like if you go through the Bible in different sacred texts, you'll see natural laws in there. In fact, the like one of the principles of second witness principle is directly from the Bible. And there's actually, you can find where this is mirrored in there, almost like the people who seek to control and dominate the universe, it's kind of like they knew that they had to kind of go after this and start locking things down with common law. Now, I don't know the actual date and when that was established, but I would imagine that it's been since, because it's based off as well, common law. So there's another form which gets into what's known as commerce, right? And commerce is just buying and selling, which is a lot of what this stuff is that we don't realize. Like in Australia, for example, police departments are corporations. Governments are corporations. So when you get pulled over, you're actually contracting. If you do what's called joiner, meaning like, how they ask for your name? Have you ever wondered why you're asked for your name when you get pulled over? That's so they can then put and step into the jurisdiction of the dead and attach your entity, which is your legal name, to that situation. So that even though you're yourself under the laws of nature and natural law, the second that you agree to that name as being who you are, you're now under the jurisdiction of common law. Does that make sense? Kind of like the reason why they're so adamant about getting your name is because they need to have someone to attach that to in their system, because they're literally just contracting with you. And once you realize that it's a contract and an offer, except for certain circumstances like emergencies, natural disasters, and things like that, there's so much more power that you have in like those kind of situations.
Yeah. So Jack is very tight on like there's two different types of like authoritarian people, right? There's those that focus on themselves and the individual, those that would like to work on themselves and create like gray markets and things like that, black markets, that would like to do things for themselves to outcompete and win the day over other authoritarian measures, right? There's some people that would use natural law for that. There's another group of people that would be called like the social anarchists, right? That want to overthrow an existing continuum, I guess, or an existing hegemony, and replace it with one that's more libertarian, right? More focused upon liberty, right? So there's like these two camps of fucking people, right? And It's been called an unbridgeable chasm before by Murray Bookchin, right? The lifestyle anarchists versus the social anarchists, right? But I think that we can focus on both a little bit, and we can find a happy medium. We can strike the balance. We can find our Tao, right? Within those two, right? So Jack is very good and focused on like what the tenets of natural law are, so that we can learn how to conduct ourselves with other human beings. And I am a little more focused. I love all of that, and I'm part of it, and I like to learn all about it, and I spend hours sometimes weeding my yard and listening to Odyssey lectures and shit from these people. But there is also the other element that there is a hierarchy that's enslaving you, right? The hierarchy enslaving you, they. And those, yeah, they. It's an acronym. So there, I think it's also really important to focus on how they use that against us, right? So like what Jack was saying, right? When they ask you for your name, that's when you exist on a piece of paper. Your existence is now a piece of paper, right? And it has your sign of nature.
Once you agree to that name, yep, right. Signature, sign of nature,
signature,
exactly.
Sign of nature, right? Then you have effectively given all power over to them, right? So that's like the approach that, like those dudes that heckle the shit out of cops and they're like, am I being detained? Am I free to go? Am I being detained? Am I free to go? Those guys, that's what they're very tight on. And I love that shit because it shows you just how much like their authoritarian structure crumbles when you don't play, right? But there's also plenty of other darker, sneaky ones that they use, right? Like it's the symbols that they use and the words that they use and like the transgenerational understanding of those words, right? Because like it's not just intergenerational, it's almost transferred its entire self. So I call it generational. These symbols of like the flag and what that means to certain people and like the weird inexplicable emotions that you can get from looking at one of those symbols, right? Any flag, not just the American flag, right? The colors that they use and all that and how that excites different parts in your brain, right? So there is a science aspect to this. I'm not being all scientism about it, but like we're looking to reprogram people, man. Like we are programmed with an unnatural law that we consider to be legitimate, I guess, for lack of a better word, right?
And we give it legitimacy and that's exactly right. So back to the example of like when you get pulled over, and again, not to go into commerce too much, but I would recommend people check out the work by Mark Passio. Has done amazing work. He's got a 3-part series on natural law alone that he goes into almost every detail you can imagine. But some things that I think would help people out is because we've all, I'm not gonna say we all, but I think we've all kind of had a situation with authority where we've been in this situation where, they ask for your ID and you just give it. And again, like, the reason we don't know what to do in these situations is because we don't know we're in an actual commerce situation. We're considered ships at sea almost, right? So when you're pulled over, they're establishing that because exactly what Chad was talking about. They want to get you to basically volunteer that you're that name on that paper so that anything that happens after that point forward, you're now liable for. So again, like and this goes back to speech as well, because word magic is a massive thing. And just to get into the word magic a little bit, when you get pulled over and you're asked for your name, that's an offer. The offer is, give me your name. Now you don't see, there's 4 ways that you can handle offers per most of these people that are talking about this explain. One is full acceptance, right? So, and this is considered honorable. So full acceptance is you give the cop your ID, that's a full acceptance, right? You've accepted the offer of give me your ID, and I'm gonna associate your name with this license that now binds you to everything that you're now saying as this legal entity, right? Which is a dead person, basically. And I can go into how this gets into why this is the land of the living and dead, the laws of the living and dead. But so when you have your full acceptance, right? Another one, and this is the biggest one that I've learned, is massive. It's a conditional acceptance. That's where you're not saying no to the cop. And this is where exactly what Chad was talking about. You see these people that I don't like, if you're heckling them, like basically that's kind of a line too far, because you're supposed to try to be in honor as much as possible. But so to be in honor and conditionally accept means you can say, sure, we'll get to that, but can you show me your authority, or you know, what is, you know, I would love to give this to you, but can you show me where I'm compelled to provide this information? So you're not saying no, but you're giving your own. It's a counteroffer, basically. So that's the word magic in that part. Now this is key right here. So the dishonorable ways, and the reason why I'm going into the dishonorable and honorable ways is because if you stay in honor in these kind of things, and like these, and this gets into business and all kinds of different areas, then you're in the right. And so basically, like, even like rulings on what would go on through that, even if you agreed to the name and you're that person, you're bound to what that entity does. If you understand these other 2 points, it's very key. And that's that beyond that, the quote unquote dishonorable ways are silence, because basically silence is considered a form of acceptance through what's called assent. Basically, your silence means you assent to that you're that name, right? Because you haven't given that. Well, and so another dishonorable way is to be belligerent, right? Because just like, think of it this way, the rules of commerce apply just like if you've ever gone to a store and you want to haggle the person on what the amount of that item you're willing to pay for it is. That's a great example of commerce. But we don't realize that is, the whole world is literally a business. Like, the whole world is a corporation. And there's legal entities that were created to support this. And that gets into like corporate structures and the UCC, the Universal Commercial Code, which I won't go into, but it's a very big area. So I understand that was a lot, but basically understanding that you've got the power to, when you conditionally accept something, because again, like if you're intimidated, then you can use that. And again, if you're pushed into a situation, you let it known that you're under duress, but that you'll comply, but you're under duress. That's why that word's used, because you cannot lawfully enter into any kind of contract or negotiation under duress. So that's why, if you've ever heard that word or whatever, that's where that relates. But it's very empowering once you realize that there's ways within even the common law system that you can conduct yourself with honor. And that's where it kind of gets into natural law, because that gets in the aspect of cause and effect. And also really important is that natural law is also known as karmic law, meaning it's, that is probably the easiest way for me to understand it, was to understand that that's like one-to-one. But again, I know that was a lot, but there's just so much under this topic that we could probably spend days talking about it.
Yeah, like that's why I just kind of refer to all of it as the laws of nature. But yeah, like we give our power away, right? Like, what comes to mind is the Pledge of Allegiance, right? Like how nationalism is, like how it becomes a structure and how it stays one. You're pledging over your heart upon death, right? Your allegiance to this social construct that we've created, right? And they've forced children to do this in plenty of places all around the world.
Yeah.
The West didn't fucking invent this, but like, we're very fond of it here in the United States.
And it's probably gone on for thousands of years, right? It's a tool that's been used.
Bowing to the king, right? That is a form of submissiveness, right? And like how people still, like, people salute and fucking, like, there's a reason why they do all that, right? And they're calling upon those laws of nature, right? They're calling upon that natural law to push people into the camps that they wish, right? Like, that's where you get a lot of false dichotomy, right? Because I think that they use something synonymous with something in the past, right? Like,
Oh, nailed it.
yeah. It makes you think of it. It activates your subconscious mind in the science aspect. It activates your subconscious mind to things far in the past that you couldn't possibly know, right? But your DNA knows when it looks upon that color next to that color, then I need to follow that, or I need to hate that, right? Like, that's where colors of flags come from, right? Like, they say that red is for blood, and sometimes, and like the Ukrainian fascist flag, the one with the black on the bottom and the red on top, that's for the black soil of Ukraine and for the blood of the men spilt upon it, right? Like, and so, like, there's a reason why they use all these colors, and it's and they force you to do the Pledge of Allegiance, right? Like, they're calling upon laws of nature to do it, right? It's magic, it's science, whatever you want to call it, right?
So this indoctrination and propaganda gets repeated over and over again. It stays ingrained in people's heads subconsciously, and through that, it becomes comfortable for these people.
Yes.
And so it's hard for them to break away from that. Even when people think that they are so informed, because I don't know, they come through some realizations, there's something that they are upset about with the system, and then they come across videos on independent media, right? They expose them to some truths, but then they can get attached to a certain realm within independent media. And I know TYT is not exactly independent media since they take corporate money, but people do get attached to those people that expose certain truth to them. They can stay attached to TYT, they can stay attached to Vosh, they can stay attached to Jimmy Dore. Would you guys say that there's some truth to that? Because they've been indoctrinated for so many years, they form a comfort in these various stages of self-awareness and awareness about the systems.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and also it's key to remember that our acquiescence comes through assent. Basically, we give away our consent through assent, being silence, as again, going to what we're talking about. And really, Franco, relates to what you're talking about and what Shadow was talking about as well, and that's that we're never taught this. We're never taught the laws of nature, natural law. We're not taught cause and effect to their actual logical conclusion. What there is there's a bunch of snake oil salesmen rolling around as spiritualists that want to sell you this feel good stuff, because once you, like, natural law for me is, I've done years of self work. That's just part of going through recovery. This was like one of the steps that really got me to go deeper, because when you start realizing that you literally, what you manifest comes from inside, you start to actually dig deeper. And part of that is there's an uncomfortability, and it kind of speaks to what you're talking about, Shadow, is that the indoctrination doesn't necessarily get broken because not only do people not know that there's another way of viewing the world, but that this other way is actually hidden intentionally.
Yeah, like, it is most definitely hidden from the general public. We're fed shit and kept in the dark. We're mushrooms. But like the media that we do receive, if it's not news, it's the filth that we fucking ingest, right? Like, the Kardashians are fucking billionaires because people watch that shit, right? Like, it has turned our idea of reality into mush, right? Like, and I'm not gonna tell anyone what the fuck to do with their bodies, but like the over obsession of plastic surgeries and shit, and like that like the filters that you can do on Snapchat and all these other fucking different things, like, it has created an unreal persona of what we're trying to make life imitate art, but we're doing it under someone else's spell, right? Like, they cast it upon us, right? Like, they're the
And
ones
paintbrushes
fund this,
and different colors. Oh,
Yeah.
you nailed it.
Yeah, like, they're the ones that fund it. They're the ones that push it, and they're the ones that like, they code everything, right? Like, because it's all in corporate law at that point, right? Like, because as a fucking corporation, you're technically a person. Corporate personhood is a fucking global thing, right? It exists in China, it exists in Russia, it exists in fucking Africa, it exists in all these fucking places, right? So like, they operate under corporate laws in which they have to when they operate under corporate law, they have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders. That's the verbatim I was trying to remember. So when you have a fiduciary responsibility to your shareholders, and it's your first and only responsibility, then you are technically not in breach of the law that you operate under, right? And no person can be held liable for what any of those corporations do under that law, because the corporation is the person, not the shareholders or the people, right? So they're not operating under the same laws that we are. We're under common law, right? We're under the dead, right? Like, that's why we have our fucking picture and our name.
If we agree to that name, though, and that's the key part, is if you agree that you're, and this is kind of key to understanding all this, is that you got to kind of like understand this from a in your mind is the fact that you're you. The name that you're given at birth, you didn't choose that. And in fact, this gets back into, I'm not going to go too far on this, but there's what's called the straw man, which is erected that is your government name, right? And that happens because there's a certificate of live birth, which actually just shows, like, in birth also gets into maritime terminology, the word BERTH, which is another um, pronunciation of birth. Like, you'll notice, like, naval terminology wraps up all in this, but your certificate of live birth is not what people mostly assume is actually proving who they are, right? It's your birth certificate, which that puts you into, basically, if you agree that you're that name on that paper, you're then liable for everything that is directed at that. So it's understanding that, you're not that name. You're who you are. It's kind of hard to summarize because it really does take like a
It's a big
paradigm shift.
problem because a lot of people don't know who they really are. They have
Exactly.
attached to themselves to this story that's been told to them since they were a kid. That and like it's all the feedback that they get from people around them. Like when you're in school or whatever, and then you attach certain personality traits to you because this is what people say about you. Oh, so and so, I'm so and so, I'm funny, I'm this, I'm that, I'm all that, and then you stay attached to that. You attach that identity to you.
Yes.
But really, if you sit and think about it, is that really who you are? And a lot of people, like I said, they don't know who they really are.
Yeah.
It's really hard to explain to people. It's something someone has to sit down and really think about. Am I really this person? Am I really this name? Am I also like where exactly can you pinpoint of where exactly you are? Are you your heart? Are you your head? Like if you lose a limb, right? You lose an arm. Is that arm still you? Like how is it that you are only like this body, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like I think that kind of leads into what type of social institutions must be negated, right? Or overthrown or transcended, right? We don't really want to necessarily say revolution, right? That's just, as Sterner put it once. He said, a revolution is a rearranging of things, right? We don't want to just be rearranging the current board, right? Like that's just we're still playing the same game. Like we need to release certain things, right? So like those certain things that we would release is things like those identification things, right? And these unnatural forms of law, like this thick Black's Law dictionaries, like a tome, right? Like all these different things that they have been operating under that we should not
which is basically an obfuscation,
right? Like we can keep it simple and to the laws of nature, right? Like that's the day after the revolution, right? Is what Jack is talking about right now. Like how we need to understand how we give our power away to other people and what institutions take those powers from us, and how we need to dismantle those institutions as well, because it's not just a simple matter of, oh well, I stopped watching corporate news, now I watch independent or alternative media. Remember how they did alt left and alt right, and now they're doing alt media? It's kind of weird how that just slipped into there all fucking easy, right? It's always alt because they're forming a false dichotomy in the framing, right? There's this media and then there's alternative media, but there's nothing in between, and this has this camp and this stays in this camp and you're in this camp, right? Like I think a lot of people participate in that cult, you know what I mean? Like in the alt media space, in the corporate media space, those people give away their power all the time by watching them and like calling in and like talking with these people on social media, right? And like it's all kind of cult driven. It's a lapse, I think, in a nature that we don't truly understand. the laws of nature, right? The things
Exactly.
that Jack talk is
and even and
elaborating.
this will blow your mind. Yeah, well, and that's the thing is like even Black's dictionary. So like I'm not sure if we can attach it to the show notes or what, but the Black's dictionary is if anyone wants to read through it and see the insanity, they actually so juid natural, or however you pronounce that, is the legal term. So let me give you the actual Black's version 4 definition of natural law, because I think that may help, because this shows that they even have to disclose this, right? And this is the natural law or law of nature, law or legal principles supposed to be discoverable by the light of nature or abstract reasoning, or to be taught by nature to all nations and men alike, or laws supposed to govern men and peoples in a state of nature, i.e. advanced of organized governments or enacted law. And basically, they even had to admit parts of this on the fact that we're in a slave system. And so there's I can't read the Latin on this, but this is from Black's dictionary as well. There's a Latin phrase that says, so far as the civil law is concerned, slaves are not reckoned as persons. That's key. If the term's person is a statutory term, man or woman is actually what you would want to be referred to, not a person. The second you're referring to yourself as a person, you're agreeing back to going to that driver's license. You're agreeing to be that name, that legal entity. But so it goes, so far as the civil law is concerned, slaves are not reckoned as persons, but not so by natural law. For so far as regards natural law, all men are equal. So you look at things like our Constitution, that was literally just people writing down parts of natural law. Like, in the fact that the Black's even the Black's dictionary, legal dictionary, even had to put in that Latin phrase, basically going into saying, even natural law applies to everyone. So even if we're living in this modern day slave system, we don't have to, we still have rights. Like that's just one of the ways that I would explain it. But there's a Tesla quote that I think really kind of like helped hit this home for me, and that's that the discovery of a secret nature reveals the other, right? So when you're de-occulting knowledge, when you discover what's been occulted, you can find and de-occult it and find what the truth is. So, and that gets into like the trivium and stuff like that, which is a whole other rabbit hole.
So I want to ask you guys this, because it is related to natural law. And but first, let me welcome in Glory Jones. What's going on? She's from Slow News.
Glory fucking Jones.
And the question is,
Franco threw me the link 5 minutes before he went live, so now here I am.
I'll start with Glory. Would you agree that independent media is, there's still cult elements within that realm?
Franco, why would you hit me up? Like, first thing I come on, you're like Dwayne Wade coming off the fast break. Dwayne Wade gets the steal, he gets these cookies, and he throws it off the backboard for the perfect alley to LeBron. Like, yes, 100%. 100%. It's not even a question.
Yes. Cult of personality, it's been called.
Yeah. A lot of people allow themselves to get governed by a lot of these trendsetters, and people think I have to have this opinion because the majority of people that I listen to in independent media all share this opinion or all share this view, and then they mistake it for being truth, and then they don't search beyond what they're saying.
Yeah,
and I see Shadowban there because there's stuff going on right now in regards to foreign policy. And then people don't search beyond what their favorite commentators are saying.
I lit
their favorite journalists.
Incenses on both sides before I started. I'm like, I need to chill.
We wrote an article predicting this shit, so I mean, come on.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Glory, you know what they're talking about?
Of course, I know absolutely what they're talking about. Me and Shadow were literally ranting back and forth about this shit. Like 5 minutes, but up until 5, I didn't even know that he was going to be on your show, because up until 5 minutes before the stream started, he was like ranting back and forth with me in Discord.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And his wife baited him out in the chat as well, saying he screamed and everything.
Yep.
But yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Much love, Teeny.
Yeah.
So let's lay it out. What's been grinding your gears today, Shadow, and then we can all piggyback off of that because it does have to do with natural law as well.
You can see here. See this right here? That says anti-warist, right?
I thought it said anti-war first.
Yeah.
Anti-war first. That'd be fucking
Yeah, I thought it was a
great.
1.
Anti-war first. All right, I'll take it. That even sounds better.
I like both.
I'm very, very anti-war. Part of the fucking curse of being a history nerd and actually enjoying the pages of the past, not just the past fucking 20 years, but like thousands of years, like all fucking stupid quarrels between empires and nation states and fucking peoples are the exact fucking same thing over and over and over again. It's the same situations. It just changes the faces. It's fucking stupid. And it just gets a lot of fucking people dead. It kills people. People fucking die. And yes, I understand there's a difference between initiating violence and self-defense. That is your law. That by the laws of nature, self-defense is your fucking right, inalienable from you. Right? But don't give me none of that fucking we had to fucking do a preemptive strike bullshit. And don't fucking pretend like any one of these motherfuckers give a flying fuck about the people getting fucking trampled underfoot, man. Like, it's always the same fucking story. I want more. I will fucking take more. Right? And there's a spell that's cast upon the fucking people with the chauvinism and the fucking war fever. Like, it is a literal fucking, like, sickness that happens with people when everyone fucking's like, we're going to war. Yeah, everyone, let's go fucking enlist. Right? Like, and it's an unnatural reaction that is parading around as a fucking natural reaction. Nobody asks the question, how many people are going to fucking die? Nobody asks the question, what are both parties actually fucking fighting for? Not just their talking points. Like, I don't fucking like war at all. It just fucking transfers more fucking violence onto the fucking regular people like us. Whether that's through fucking taxing the flying fuck out of you or through bombs dropping on your fucking head. This is, and there's always two fucking sides to a fucking war, for fuck's sake, man. Like, or more, right? Like, this isn't multipolarity. Isn't fucking something new? I mean, what, the prelude to fucking World War I, those like 15,000 fucking wars that happened in fucking Europe before the Great War. There's a reason why it was called the Great War, because everyone was fucking warring all the time.
There's a reason why the Conference of Berlin, or the Berlin Conference, was a conference and not a acquaintance meeting between two warring countries of Berlin, or acquaintance, or one hegemonic unipolar party decides to carve up Africa. Conference of Berlin. No, it was sorry. It happened under a period of multipolarity, as did transatlantic slave trade, the age of exploration between European powers going over to the Americas, and and the East as well, and colonizing them, and several other terrible, atrocious things that happened against history. So, to be an enemy of multipolarity isn't necessarily being for unipolarity or for bipolarity or for the current system. It's just being, it's a false dichotomy. It's just being against polarity in general, being against the current system, because polarity feeds into this idea of, I need to engage in imperialist actions for the sake of competition with so-and-so, for the sake of maintaining multipolarity, for the sake of making sure that so-and-so doesn't become a hegemon.
Well, and then that creates a false dichotomy, and it fucking self, because are you going to take the checkbook or are you going to take the missile?
Right.
You know, like there's no choice involved in that. Like that's like a fucking cop saying, give me your fucking ID right now or I'm going to fucking take you down to the station. I'm going to book your ass.
Yeah, and it goes back to, you know, with electoral politics, when people are like, oh, if you're not going to vote for the Democrats, then that means you're helping Trump. Or if you're not going to vote for Trump, you're helping the Democrats. You're helping Joe Biden start communism in the United States and to help it grow. And if you're against China and what they do to countries in Africa or all this, then that means that you support the U.S. doing it. No. It's like these are false dichotomies.
No. Literally,
it can be against all of it.
The reason why we talk about this shit that great powers all over the world, like China and Russia, do in places in the global south, such as Africa, such as the Caribbean, such as Latin America, is because they engage in the exact same activities that Western powers did, and they do it answering to the same exact people and the same exact greedy, corrupt forces that Western powers did. You think that China is the only country that builds bridges? No. This was like, I'm sorry, because I hear this talking point so much. This is literally a thing that I hear a lot, where it's like, well, the
bridges
US
and
comes,
roads.
well, the
Bridges
US
and
comes
roads.
with bombs, but
Yeah.
China comes with bridges. You know who else built bridges? Great Britain. You know who else built train stations and railways? The UK. Okay. You know who else delivered food and aid to these people? USAID and the US in Haiti. So yes, of course, you're going to take the bridges and the roads as opposed to the bombs, as opposed to the occupation and looting. But please, let's not pretend that the purpose of those bridges and roads is not to hasten and make exploitation essentially more efficient.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And just so, like, I see channels now and like calling themselves like, oh, multipolarista, or I support multipolarism, but that it already exists. Like, we already live in a multipolar world. And I just want to share this clip real quick for you guys. I thought it was a good analysis. This is from the channel called The Analysis with Paul J. And I don't necessarily agree with everything that gets put out there, but I thought this was a good breakdown about how we already live in a multipolar world. Just give me a second. All right. Let me know if you guys can hear this.
Niet.
No?
Are you
All
clicking share audio?
Let me see.
Or are you doing this through StreamYard or OBS?
StreamYard.
Then
Yeah, I gotta click the share audio. 1 second. And then it'll work.
Yeah.
There we go.
It's super quiet.
What about now?
I can hear it, but it's super quiet.
I
I have no clue why that is.
What about now?
The same as before.
Same as before? Alright, I'm gonna do it the old way. 1 second.
The old way.
Oh god.
The old way is when I unplug my headphones and then I just let the speakers.
Are we going back
do the audio.
to man bun Frank analysis days?
Yeah. But those were just that was back when I would do just like recorded videos and all that. Where's it at? Right here?
To an American as global hegemon.
All right.
Better?
And thus, some people are arguing, but the issue of a multipolar world is a kind of bigger conversation. the way it's posed is that a strong Russia and a strong China is a countervailing power to an American as global hegemon. And thus, some people are arguing, and I would say, you get some of this in the Western left, but it's maybe even a more powerful argument in the global South, that a strong Russia is a critical countervailing power, and a strong China, even more importantly, to American power. And I think it's true and not true. And let me say, to begin with, it makes absolutely no difference what anyone thinks about whether a multipolar world is a good thing or a bad thing. Because this is part of an objective process of development of capitalism. We are in a multipolar world. It's not up for debate. So, have a theory, have a debate, write a paper, have a thesis, argue with this academic or that academic. Honestly, nobody gives a shit. Because it's not up to us. It just is. Is capitalism a bad thing? Yeah. It ain't going away because we don't like it. So there is a multipolar world, and honestly, when wasn't there? That's what I don't actually get. When was there a unipolar world? Well, there certainly wasn't during the time of the Soviet Union. So when was there, between 1990 and 2000, it was unipolar? Well, if it was so unipolar, why did India continue to make most of its arms purchases with Russia? If it's so unipolar, why couldn't the United States force India to transition to a totally U.S. Supply for arms? Even to this day, only recently has the Indian arms purchases from Russia gone down a little bit. At the end of the Soviet Union, in the final year, like 89, 90, the number one trading partner of India was Russia, was the Soviet Union. Where's that unipolar world? The United States couldn't even stop India from having such extensive trade with the Soviet Union, and most importantly in arms, because there's nothing more important to the United States than which arms network system you're part of. So I'm not saying the Americans weren't a hegemon, but let's be realistic about that hegemony.
If I can offer a little bit of a challenge to that position, which is that certainly there have been multiple players the entire time on a very large scale, but who has had the power to organize military coups, to instate disaster capitalism, and to have their major financiers get their fingers in every pie, the way the United States has?
Yeah, of course, nobody. But because you're the dominant player in global capitalism, even more important, because you're the manager of global capitalism, including reserve currency and such, and the power of the Fed internationally, of course, very powerful. The CIA, very powerful. But look at the projection of American military power. One disaster after another. Fought to a standstill in Korea, lose in Vietnam. They were so successful in Grenada, and they were able to kidnap the president of Panama. Lose in Iraq. Oh, you won the first Iraq war. Okay, let's give them that. Lose the Iraq war, where there's a real invasion. Lose in Afghanistan. I mentioned Vietnam, which is the obvious one. I mean, every major projection of U.S. military power has been a debacle. So let's not exaggerate, this ability of the U.S. to determine the outcome of everything. And every one of these big defeats, with the exception of Korea, was done virtually by the people themselves with very little external support. Vietnam got some support from the Soviet Union, not much from China. but not a lot from the Soviet Union, not nearly as much as one would have expected, because the Soviets didn't want to antagonize the Americans. The Iraqis fought and basically won, making the American troops withdraw without a little bit of external support from Iran, but not that much. I mean, it goes on and on. So, this world that people try to imagine, that the Americans are pulling the strings of everything. Did the Americans really want all these left-wing governments to get elected in Latin America?
Yeah, and he went on to talk about that, like Maduro, Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela, Daniel Ortega in Nicaragua, all these other Latin American leaders that, Bolivia's Evo Morales, and his party. That's not what the U.S. wants. If it were up to them, they would have different leaders. But yeah, shout out to Propaganda for sending me that.
Well, and of course, the one thing I'll say to counter that, though, is whenever the U.S. does project its military power and go into these countries to invade them, the goal isn't to win. It's more so to destabilize, so you can put the country in a position where it's in a perpetual state of fighting, and that perpetual state of fighting enables these massive companies to come in and loot resources. A prime example being Syria and Yemen. The U.S. is losing in Syria very clearly, but looting of oil from the northeast region in Syria has gone up exponentially. And same thing with Yemen, which is actually a different but still similar case. The U.S. and Saudi-led coalition has been in ceasefire negotiations, and I believe there's a ceasefire going on right now between the Houthi rebels and the puppet government, the one that's recognized by nearly every member of the international community and obviously the Saudi coalition. But the problem is even though the U.S. is losing, the Saudi-U.S. UK coalition is losing the war on that front, not only is the humanitarian crisis continuing, but a huge amount of natural gas and oil has been looted from Yemen, thanks in part to the help of French company Total Energies. But nonetheless, I do give credence to a lot of his points.
Yeah. Like, you can look farther back in history too, right? Like, all over the fucking world, people colonized and fucking killed and maimed and swallowed up everything that they didn't like, right? Like, the story of the world is a bloody one. It's a dark fucking thing, like what humans are capable of. So, like, I don't know. There's multipolarity all throughout fucking history. I think the biggest fucking folly of most people is to believe that we're unique in some way, right? Like, oh, this time it's totally different, right? Like, if we just do it my way, it's gonna be great. There's self-worship in that, right?
But Shadow, I'm the guy. So if we do it my way, maybe we might turn out better.
If we replace the power with different people, as long as they're not self-aware of themselves, we're going to keep committing the same mistakes over and over again throughout history. That's why self-awareness is really important.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to actually improve the world. You're just going to replace one empire with another empire.
What a
Imagine
concept.
That. Like, history wasn't a story of just different hegemons all throughout it. There was always multipolarity. Everyone's always competing. Everyone's always
like we as a species need to do self-work.
Yeah.
Like, there's a great quote. It's like, go within or go without. Or also said is like, the only way out is in. I believe that's by Tom Burnett, but like, it really does get into that because like...
The only way out is through.
Yeah, that's another way to say it too. But it's just it's just and also tying this back to natural law, this gets into moral relativism. I mean, that's like exactly what we're looking at. We're right, or one group is right, or this is for the good of all of these people, whereas you're speaking on authority for people that you don't have permission to speak on, or things like that. And especially this like multipolar thing, it's just I'm with you on that, Shadow. It's like we've always lived in a thing like that. There's a declared hegemon, and then there's all of the side occulted shit going on behind the scenes until another one gets on the throne or whatever.
Yeah.
Like whatever terminology you want to use.
You can. This is not hard to find. Okay, the U.S. dollar is not the first world's reserve currency, right? Like there was in 1492 it became Portugal, and then after that I think it was Spain, and then after that I think it was Belgium, and then after that it was France, and then after that it was Britain, and then it was the dollar, and every time it skips somewhere between 70 and 100 years of a hegemon, and then they collapse because of the debt bubble that happens as a result of capital. Like, this is the critique of capitalism that, like, no leftists don't seem to have a fucking critique of capitalism anymore. I'm a little
Why do you
confused.
say that?
Like, the fucking communists don't have anything to say about fucking capitalism and how it actually fucking works. It's kind of fucking weird.
Particularly on an international scale?
Yes. Like, even if you're going to follow the Leninist doctrine, this is imperialism. This is the fourth and final form, right? I can't remember the final stage. That's because he's always about his stages. So it's like the critique is there. Like, why do you think it's so much fucking different, dude? Like, or has been different throughout history? You know what I mean? Like
marketing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the invent of television, again, tell a vision, like it's in the word magic, man.
Yeah. I don't buy any of the fucking chauvinist ideas because I just don't buy nationalism. It's like stupid.
So what is this ideal world that you guys think we could live in, and how can we achieve that ideal?
Everyone waking up to natural law and realizing that every decision and thing that you do has a repercussion and a consequence, and realizing that there's a power in that we don't have to be scared of that, take ownership for our own shit, do the self-work, and then naturally you would, and I'm already seeing this, like there's groups of people that are just tired of all this shit. So like you go to ask them like, oh, hey, do you think they're going to be doing X, Y, or Z? They're going to put these mandates in. They're like, no, I'm only concerned with what I'm going to do. Because you're taking that responsibility back, right? Because for whatever these different nations do, it's like if enough people were awakened to the fact that we have these things and we have remedy, I don't think the world would be in is a mess of it is. But again, that's all speculation. I mean, I honestly don't know, Franco, is the truthful answer. Because even if people woke up to natural law, you would have another group that would then go in and try to occult everything that everyone was just de-occulted from. And that's the pattern that we see through history.
People being misled, right? And then treating natural law like a cult.
Right. And it's cyclical, right? Like, what's that Mark Twain shit that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes? Right? It's cyclical. And we keep doing this. Like, I think voluntary association is one of my favorite ideals to hold, right? Like, if we want to fucking do capitalism and you want me to pay you a wage, that's cool. If you want to be a partner with me and we want to like engage in market transactions as partners and we split everything 50-50 or 25-25-25 and so on and so on and so on, like, I'm cool with all that. Like, it depends. As long as it's fucking voluntary and nobody's fucking like forcing this shit on you. Like, voluntary doesn't just mean I make my own decisions, right? Like, voluntary means I'm my own fucking human being. Like, the more that I come to respect other people, the more that I come to respect myself. And the more that I respect myself, the more I come to respect other fucking people, right? Maybe this is like my teenage brain is finally hardened. I don't know, it got doused in food for a few years, so it could have like pickled and like and like
fermented.
Is that what you're called?
Fermented fucking brain. Like, there's a way, like I was saying earlier, there's the part of we have to get rid of this particular institution, right? And doing that individual and self-work makes you understand what institutions are actually plaguing you, right? What institutions are plaguing you and what things have you given your power away from, because you're born with all the power in the world. and systematically it's taken and you given away constantly.
And even worse, we give it away. Like back to the earlier example, when you declare that you are the name on that license, you've then bound yourself. It's called joiner is the term. You can just think of it as you're joining into an agreement under commerce. But it even goes to that. Like I never, like we all had a suspicion that something's not right in the world, and it really took natural law for me to kind of see that, because I'd always wonder why these interactions happen the way they do. Like whenever, you'd be in a car, you get pulled over, and then the questioning term, right? Because I'm not going to go into this too much, but there's two roles in any kind of situation under commerce. There's a creditor and there's the debtor. So the creditor is the one asking the questions, the debtor is the one's answering. You want to be the creditor. Now, what happens when a cop walks up to your car? They're taking the role of creditor right away. That's what they want. They want you intimidated and scared so that you don't even remotely even know who you are as a person, so that you attach to that entity, that dead name on a certificate willingly. And like that gets to the deception because of all the programming that we're taught, that this is what you do when you get pulled over. This is how you have to handle every situation. And I'm not saying go out there and like this is the biggest part, is like, don't assume that like when you start getting into natural law that you hear examples of people that have successfully pushed back on these kind of things, that you can go out and do this. It's not that simple. You really, and the people that I really follow in regards to natural law, they explain that you need to know yourself. That's really what natural law is knowing yourself more, because the outer world will then follow.
Yeah. And I mean, I can't really explain my ideal world, because it would kind of look like a cross between like the island of Jamaica and the spirit world from Avatar: The Last Airbender. And should I begin to add more detail to that world, I would get probably thoroughly clowned on and be here in some nonsensical topic, because I'm only 22. I don't even know what my ideal life is yet. So I'm not going to go out here and try to process what my ideal vision for the world could be. But I will say it looks very similar to kind of the way of life that we've seen kind of our fellow Indigenous brothers and sisters live right alongside each other and right alongside nature through things like what Shadowban says, voluntary association, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we're a very far way away from that. And I am, able to recognize that, as anybody should be, of course, because that's just common sense. But I mean, also, it's something that you can work towards just like by doing little things, by doing like little self work, but also by like engaging with people in your community, by doing things like, what Vandana Shiva says, collecting seeds, saving the seeds that are local to your environment, being able to become acclimated with your surroundings and live in kind of like mutualistic relationships with the people around you and the environment around you, and just like little ways to do that. And also, of course, I am one who considers abolition to be a major part of getting there. So whatever you can do to help destroy the institutions that are stamping their boot on their neck, feel free to engage in that. I won't specify what, but I will throw it out there that today it was found that Haitians were looting and partially burning the American banks in their communities, as well as seizing the food from USA distribution centers. Not giving any ideas, but I'm throwing that out there.
Yeah,
Hats off.
wasn't it also prophesized by like Native Americans that Americans, or like the white colonizers, are going to destroy the earth so much that they're going to have to come back and seek help from the surviving natives to learn how to live with nature again.
Yeah. I don't know if it was prophesied, but I fucking fully believe with living with nature, living with the planet. Mm-hmm. It's not just something that we can just fucking endlessly extract things from.
Yeah, according to people like Haas, apparently we're not supposed to care about the planet. We're not supposed to care about indigenous people that get their land destroyed, because it's all about growth.
Well,
So
no,
who
no,
cares
no,
about
no,
the
no, no,
planet?
no. And according to one of the major people who began pushing this idea, according to Kayla Maupin, who said that that humans are entitled to dominate nature. No, we're not. Like, listen, I'm not gonna pretend like you have to be subservient to nature, like we have to bow down every time we have a tree. No, because that's the image that these people get in their heads when they think of like environmentalists or the
Earth
tree huggers.
worshiper.
Like, no, it's just
It's
saying that you have to live in tandem with your surrounding environment and know it and treat it well. Otherwise, it comes back to bite you
yeah,
in the
yeah, yeah.
butt.
So
And
natural law.
I'm not even
Yeah,
talking
the
about an
laws of
abstract
nature apply.
concept. I'm not even talking about an abstract concept like climate change. I'm talking about very imminent natural disasters and also man-made disasters like pollutions of rivers, the mining which poisons rivers, the mining which poisons the land, which poisons the air, these gas leaks and explosions which leak methane gas into poor black and brown communities, burn pits in Iraq, Agent Orange in Vietnam, like
Yeah.
and like the floods in Pakistan too. All these things, like, it comes back around to bite humans, to bite us in the ass. And no matter how much you try and insulate yourself from the effects of the destruction that you do unto the environment, you're not going to be able to escape it. All you're going to do is further push it on to lower income communities, to the working class, to poor black and brown communities, to indigenous communities.
Yeah, and they're the ones that are going to be suffering. Right? They're going to be feeling the brunt of the land being poisoned, their food getting poisoned, and then their health gets deteriorated, and then
This
they
isn't
have
just
to.
something that capitalist people do, right?
Yeah,
Like this unending growth model applies to all, can and does applies to all, right? Like anything is acceptable in the means of progress, right? Well, in the end goal of progress, and I think
Yeah.
that's really fucking dangerous, right? Like I'm not really a fan of the history as a progression with a fucking start and an end point. Like it's cyclical. It fucking goes from here.
They wait for the generations to die out that remember, and then they start a new scheme.
Yeah.
So this idea that Glory pointed out that Caleb Maupin was pushing about how humans were made to dominate the world or dominate nature, I believe it's a misconception from the Bible, because I remember he would cite the Bible a lot. What that means, that doesn't mean you have to like do with it what you will in terms of like destroying things and poisoning the land, or doing all these things for growth, because if you're gonna dominate it that way, you're destroying yourself. You're causing harm to yourself. You can't separate yourself from nature.
Yeah. Like I got into the fucking like leftist scene through environmental politics. Like I was not like someone that just decided one day that I wanted to have an ideology, right? Like there was a trigger that happened there. When I fucking worked in the oil rigs, I was poisoning people for fucking profit. Don't fucking tell me that shit is safe. It's never been fucking safe. If you ever worked a fucking half a second in or around the industry, you know it wasn't fucking safe. It pollutes the fuck out of everything, whether it be your fucking land, whether it be your water, whether it be the acid rains. Like this idea that we can just fucking take is fucking destroying our surroundings.
Yeah,
like,
unfortunately,
that's how I got into this whole space. So don't like these people with their bulldoze the rainforest bullshit.
Yeah, it's out of ignorance, right?
Yeah.
We see people on Twitter like pushing for that. It's like bulldoze the rainforest. Yeah, like who do you think that's going to affect? What about all those indigenous people that rely on those resources from that?
That's a thing.
Place. Yeah, it's a thing, Jack. Unfortunately, people like Samir are pushing that.
Oh fuck! I'm glad I'm not on Twitter. My head would explode.
And with the way that our world currently functions, who is going to benefit off of that the most? It's going to be the corporations.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be the people involved with the World Economic Forum, which Russia and China are also a part of.
Absolutely.
So if you're saying that, oh, well, like, I'm okay with it if it's China or Russia doing it, it's still harm being caused.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anyone of those people have ever lived around like a very unethically mined place. Like, and you're not going to just fucking come out with some new rules and regulations that are going to solve that shit overnight. Like,
you can't legislate your way out of moral depravity.
Yeah. There's no safe way to pipeline any fucking thing. Like, that's not a thing. Like, we need to get off of fucking fossil fuels. As far as like the whole fucking global warming and the fucking climate change and the fucking whatever the fuck else they're calling it now, like, some of that is probably pretty contrived.
Oh yeah.
Fucking big goddamn checkbook. They just say for
yeah. Well, I mean, it's purposely abstract as a means to distract from, the very
pollution.
Visceral and specific environmental destruction that happens. I mean, like, it used to be global warming. Then it became even more abstract into something like climate change. And like, I'm not denying that there could be like changes in any sort of changes in the climate as a result of human activity or as a result of what the earth does itself. Or I'm not denying that the same for global warming. But what I'm saying is that purposeful abstraction, the whole and the hyper focus on carbon net zero and carbon emissions is just used as a means to distract people from, okay, what about the consequences of lithium mining that's going to occur because you need it for all these electric vehicle batteries? What about the consequences of cobalt mining? What about the consequences of deep sea mining? Like, it's such oh my God, reporting on deep sea mining is such a niche thing, but like, literally it's going to become such a problem for the ocean ecosystem if commercial deep sea mining is put into place. And it's currently happening. Like, a 2-year rule was literally implemented on the ISA, International Seabed Authority, which is in charge of writing the mining code. So within a couple of years, commercial deep sea mining is going to become a reality, because at that point we would have plundered so much of the global south already.
So
and think about it. They'll use
it's no here for. Do you guys like solar panels and electric cars? No.
I wish solar
profiting
panels
off of that.
Solar panels could be used. Solar panels could be the bomb, but they're not manufactured that way. Like, we haven't engineered them.
They're still manufactured through fossil fuels.
Yeah. And can I just say, anytime I see a Tesla, I make it a point to cut them off.
Oh, like all the mining for lithium and all these, like for the battery, cobalt.
Doing it.
Yeah, for cobalt, like it's like there was an article I came across that was breaking down how electric cars like Tesla are actually worse for the environment because of the resources
you could
that
buy
they're
it, and this was years ago.
Global South.
Like,
yeah, that's the thing, Franco. Is think about it. The car or the net expenditure of resources that were used to make a used car are already done. That whatever harm has been caused to the environment's already been done. So you're actually likely better off buying a used car with decent gas mileage than buying a Tesla, compared to how much crap goes into extracting all the minerals just to make the lithium batteries alone. That doesn't even get into the data centers running all of the comms gear on that as well.
Yeah.
He's gonna play.
Well, I mean, objectively speaking, the MAGA thing is a toxic nationalism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good people that got sucked into it, man. And it's okay to admit you got cucked. I've actually convinced everyone that I worked with that fucking voted for Trump. Yeah, man, you got cucked. And they're like, yeah. Right? Yeah, I'm turning everyone into a rabid anti-statist, right?
Yeah, but, I mean, it's very much some empty engagement farming, sloganeering that some grifters are pushing as a means to, again, boost engagement and boost their image. And but yeah, it's just a nicer looking version of National Socialism, really.
It's not even nicer looking, dude. Dude, it's the Strasser plan.
Okay, you know what? It's not nicer. It's not nicer looking, but it's more gimmicky. So
1 second here, Jake, Coral. Are you referring to people had no other choice in terms of who to vote for? It doesn't matter who you vote for. It's an illusion. You don't get a choice.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
People forget,
whoever
yeah.
wins is still going to serve the true rulers of this country. Whether it's Trump or Biden or whoever, Obama, they all serve the same people. It's still lesser of two evils, whether you vote for
And why
Trump or
give
whatever.
legitimacy to a rigged system with your vote? I mean, that's just my take on it.
Yeah. Well, every time that you fucking decide to sign your name on that ballot, you are giving away your fucking power to govern yourself, buddy. Keep going with that.
Tying that in with natural law, right?
No, and it goes into it. Break down the word government. Governing, the mind, mind. It literally means like the governing, the managing of the mind. It's just like like when you start getting into etymology and you start breaking down these words like signature, sign of nature, things start clicking on a profound level because you even watch what you say. Like I don't use the word person. Like again, when I'm in public, this gets into the different jurisdictions, but like even stuff like that, because when you realize that you're using what's called statutory terms, meaning legalese for lack of a better word, you start seeing all these different like just like things in of themselves, like so like there's a great one, I'm trying to find it, like just breaking down the words, like so like we went down signature, but like one that really kind of hit me is that like, so like the word notice. What is the word notice? It just means not ice.
It's fucking asinine to me. Like, we already know the fucking conclusion of fucking National Socialism, you fucking twerp. Like, Jesus, fuck. I've seen this movie before. Come on, man. Like,
the funniest thing about it is that
see that coming.
The funniest thing about it is that people who are like Trump supporters, MAGA, are like just shutting down anybody who's like, no, but we agree on the same things. Like, get the fuck out of here. I hate communism. Like, if you are a communist, you're an enemy of America. You're not a patriot.
You're just Antifa trying to infiltrate the movement, like literally. And trust me, like this is actually something that I've had to deal with on the ground when I was trying to talk with MAGA people, and it's like genuinely one of the most frustrating things. I would be trying to talk to people and they would be like, wait, I saw you at a BLM rally, how could you? And I'm like, yeah, I don't support cops killing unarmed black men. What do you expect? And they're all like, oh, so you're Antifa. And it's like, bro, I'm here because I don't support mandates. Like, I can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like, so
they better. I think they understand it better when you don't attach yourself to any labels.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is very hard to do if you're someone like me who's been seen at multiple different protests for multiple different causes. But like, I promise you, it's possible.
Like, I'm trying to figure out how to say this very diplomatically, right?
I know.
Can we move past the fucking powdered wig ideology now? Yeah. Like, the left and right has to do with dudes sitting in powdered wigs and makeup on fucking two sides of a fucking room.
It was literally what side of I forget now, but it was so like it was what side you sat on of the ruler or whatever. The left side would like essentially pander down to the working class and say they were going to be their friends. The right side was just more upfront about that and more what were called like loyalists. But it's a division of where you sat on the sides of the seat of power. That's what left and right is. Like the fact that team sports still exist to me is just like, it shows that we've got this human condition where we're unwilling to move into our own lanes and our own thoughts and feelings. As a society, I'm guilty of this too. I was totally stuck up in a lot of ideologies that I just do distance myself from now. But it does make you wonder. It's like, are these like ruling class asses able to do this because we've assent, like our silence, and not just our silence, but our unwillingness to evolve as a group? Like, it's mind numbing.
Yeah. There's just not enough self-awareness out there, Jack.
Exactly.
Well, you
It
know,
sucks.
it's because we refuse to evolve that we need a new cognitive revolution, guys. Let's go. Yuval Noah Harari, where are you at?
Cognitive
Yeah,
restructuring.
yeah.
It's right that they use in drug recovery, actually. Drug and alcohol recovery. But like, come on, can we laugh about this shit already? Like, left, right, fucking powdered wigs. Like, we're all running, like everyone's running around with their ethereal powdered wigs on that their great great grandpappy had on. I'm a leftist. Oh, I'm a right winger.
Oh my god, Shadow.
Okay, we need to do skits. We need to do animated shorts or something.
Can we talk about
'Cause I
how
can't tell you that.
some of these big players, some of these people that have a lot of control, like people like CEOs and stuff, people in the World Economic Forum co-opt terms such as sustainable, and I'm pretty sure
Absolutely.
like New Agers also co-opted the term consciousness.
Absolutely.
Like all this stuff gets co-opted.
Absolutely.
From,
I mean,
to distract from the true
ESGs.
That's
meaning.
way to occult it.
ESGs, STGs, like the language of sustainability has been reframed around, you know, carbon net zero and making sure that everyone has an electric vehicle and making sure that no one's using a single drop of gas at all or oil at all in this completely like false version of reality that only the richest can ever live in. I mean, it's the whole language of sustainability has been entirely co-opted by the
Just
World
invert
Economic
the word,
Forum
Glory.
and by
You're right.
its partners because because I mean, and that's the nature of the way they recognize where the world is going, and specifically they recognize where the youth is going. That's why people like Klaus Schwab focus so much on young leaders. They have the Young Global Leaders the young what do they call it again, YGL, young global leader, a global leader for tomorrow. They have those programs, they have the image of Greta there, they have this focus on the youth, which is, you know, increasing their consciousness to these issues, which is becoming more cognizant of these issues as a means to co-opt that energy and to try to funnel it back into this whole murderous system that we live in, back into this idea of stakeholder capitalism where, hey, you're a stakeholder in this now. So, again, this is something that existed throughout history. Major powers and major leaders always try to co-opt movements as a means to delegitimize them and the people, delegitimize them to reactionaries, and also to take steam out of them. You know, that's happened to BLM, that's happened to the anti-mandate movement, that's happened to every single major movement, and specifically the environmental movement with regards to how its language has been co-opted by the WEF as a means to push stakeholder capitalism in the fourth industrial revolution. Hell, Bill Gates, Rockefeller Foundation, and USAID were some of the main funders of the Green Revolution in Africa, which was literally nothing but a massive industrial farming scheme, which decreased yields and essentially depreciated the land and the soil and local communities, local farming communities, small farmers, and they tried to brand that as a green revolution. We see these schemes all over. So it's just a matter of being able to recognize that there are always going to be leeches. There are always going to be people trying to leech off of these movements. That doesn't mean that the cause is illegitimate. It does not at all.
100%.
So just keep going. If anything, that should make you go even harder. Like, I don't know.
Part of me wonders if they do. Oops, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like, whenever I see these fuckwads in the WF try to talk about the environment, I'm like, damn, time to go even harder at deep sea mining then. Or like whenever I would see people, whenever I would see a lot of, like, I don't know, Steve Bannon or Ron DeSantis. You know, actually, I'm going to use Ron DeSantis because Gitmo Boy is a big one. Whenever I would see him try to co-opt and leech off the anti-mandate movement, I would be like, oh man, time to talk about Op Warp Speed even more and how the right really helped spearhead Op Warp Speed so we could hand over our health data to Palantir. Like, I don't know, maybe that's just me because I'm crazy, but also like don't let the co-option discourage you from a movement. Let it make you go even harder. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well
The thing
said.
I was going to add to that is, there's so much in there that I could try to unpack, but it would take me like 4 hours because that was awesome.
That was fucking
But
wicked.
mostly like, yeah, well, and mostly like, because you nailed it. It's not, and a lot of the natural law stuff that the people that I trust in that, they're the ones that say like, don't even trust what I say on this. Like, literally just go with your instincts, because it is about not letting the system disempower you, because that's literally what the system is there for. That's what they are there for. But more so, like, I almost kind of wonder, like with the whole like WEF stuff, when they say like carbon zero and all that crap, are they that blatant in their eugenics, like fetishization, that they're just like almost kind of like outward saying, yeah, carbon neutral, okay, or carbon zero, so no humans? That's what you guys want? Just a bunch of freaky robots running around?
I saw some meme that was probably doctored up and not real, but it was supposed to be a fucking a billboard in Germany where a lady has 2 kids with her. One of them's breastfeeding, and it says the future or ecocide, I think is what it says. Like the death of the species, I guess. Ecocide. I'm not sure. But like that's, I think what people are trying to get to is I think people are really trying to get us on the eugenics train, right? Because anytime you fucking fuck with nationalism, that's coming. Don't fucking be fooled by nationalism.
It's the gateway to more relativism almost.
It's attached to that contract also, pledging to allegiance and all the propaganda that we were fed ever since we were little.
Think about how nuts that is, Franco. Like, everyone, like I'm sure everyone on this panel in particular, like in general, like watching, can remember in school, like it really kind of, when I was doing the self-work, I was kind of reliving some stuff through, like, again, you can kind of probably tell I was questioning the teacher on why things were that they were saying. I kind of had an issue with authority, but the thing that really hit me was how cultish the standing for the Pledge of Allegiance was. Because if you said, no one could sit down, like, you could be sick or injured or something, and you would have that peer pressure in you, right, to have to stand up. And then you realize that indoctrination starts that young, and then you realize that our schooling system was built on, what was it, the Prussian school, along with there's a Paul Check actually brought up an interesting point, that there was a plantation schooling system that was in order to distract and basically instill the disempowerment in the children of slaves to try to create more, for their words, docile, to try to control people, which is, again, you get more into natural law, you realize that it's about ending slavery. In fact, a book that I would recommend that I'm checking out right now, it's kind of like the Tao of natural law, is called End Evil. And it goes into basically a big form of this, which we've kind of been discussing, not so roundabout, but very direct, and that's morality. And morality is like, that's key, because without morality, where does anything else come into place? Like, if we lived in a society that actually was dealing with morality, right and wrong, natural law, deep sea mining wouldn't be a fucking thing, because you would understand that the ocean is a precious resource, that we're not out there to just rape and pillage. That, or just call me crazy.
No, like it's a mind control game. Like, and when you're talking about the Prussian school, right? Like, that's how we run off of. That's how we've structured our fucking education system all across the world, right? Like, when somebody says they're bringing you fucking schools, you be fucking careful. When they're bringing you schools, they're bringing you their schools. They're bringing you their interpretation of all things.
Well, and especially with the Fourth Industrial Revolutionized term of version of that, when someone says they're bringing you digital IDs, run. I'm looking at you, Cardano.
More contracts.
Yes, and it's all just contracts, and because
I just heard Charles Hoskinson's asshole pucker up.
Would you guys say that attaching yourself to a label, is that also a form of making a contract with something?
Yes.
Yeah, because that's an offer.
Because that's how group mentality takes over, right? Me and Jack
because then you're
about that in the last in our fucking pandemic piece, the pandemic of fear.
So people are afraid of ruining their reputation with the people in their group who all have the same label as
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, nobody fucking likes
Precisely.
my shit no more.
Huh?
Nobody likes me no more.
Oh, we still like you, Shadow Band. You have a
Yeah.
wife who likes you sometimes.
Well,
Yeah.
yes.
Otherwise, it's
Most of the
mayo ketchup on your food.
No, that's a crime against humanity.
Yeah, did you
Would that be
guys
called
know that
cacheo?
Shadow Band absolutely loves milk in his coffee?
Ooh, café con leche.
Ew.
I'm about to go colonist on all of you, man.
He's about to go fully bearded.
Tina says Polly looks psychotic.
Sometimes I get that way, but yeah, like
It's because you're passionate.
yeah,
Uh-oh.
my fucking passionate vein goes into like just downright hostility.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't fucking join the group and then gain the fucking, and then gain my the issues that I care about. Right? Like, these things just developed organically within me. Right? Like, I didn't fucking need Lennon to tell me that fucking we might want to start like sharing a little bit. Like,
And here's the thing, we can find truths in a lot of these places. Like there's some truths in the Communist Manifesto. There's some truths in what Lenin said. There's some truths in what a lot of people say, but it doesn't mean you have to
Remind
stay
me of
attached
point on Marx.
and believe every single thing that's there. You take whatever is true and whatever works, and you include that when you go somewhere else looking for more truths. And sometimes you may discover that things that you used to think were true are not actually true. That's all part of the journey.
Yeah, like
You
it's
nailed it,
actually
because-
using historical.
Yeah, transcend and include. Transcend and include. That's how it should be.
Dialectical. Sorry.
Oh, you went there. So a really interesting thing. Again, like I highly recommend if anyone wants to go check this out, Buckminster Fuller World Games. He's got it's a 3-part series where he talks to a college and he brings up this point about Malthus, right? So Thomas Malthus, if you've heard the word Malthusian, it means anti-human, because that's what Malthus terms. Though he was sent out by the ruling elite to category all of the inventory of the world's resources and come back. And the fascinating part that Buckminster Fuller brought up that I had forgotten about was that Marx agreed with Malthus, with his assessment, with one stipulation, that the quote-unquote worker, which again, get back to etymology, worker, right? That it's basically, can't think of any other name to explain that the worker is just a fancier way to say slave, because you're working for someone, you're not working for yourself. But Marx agreed with Malthus, which kind of,
Yes.
I had forgotten that so much, because when, again, like speaking about the universal truths, you get involved in those authors, but the fact that, like, not only that, but so what Marx postulated was, he added, but the because this was back when Darwin was blown up as well, and so basically what Marx said was yes, but he agreed with Malthus with one stipulation, that the worker was the fittest, therefore the workers should tend the lands the best. So even history, like everything is so warped around that, because it really is that we could read any of these, like people that have these great works. You could read Lenin, you could read Marx, you could read, I'd prefer people read some other stuff as well, but pull that truth out and get all the cognitive dissonance out on what can work and what can't, be realistic, and then apply it like in a natural kind of way.
Yeah. And then like also take account of what other people fucking said about them and the things that actually happened, right? Like,
The Gulag Archipelagos.
yeah, well, but I'm thinking more like people like Victor Serge, right? Or Sergei, whatever the fuck his name is. He was a Bolshevik revolutionary, and he fucking talked about why the institutions that they created failed, right? Like in the Memoirs of a Revolutionary. And let's see who else. Fucking Machno is a good read. But like, it's important to see why ideologies fail. Right, so we can continue on, like, and find a new fucking way, right? Like, we don't have to be bound by the powdered wigs anymore. Like, we don't fucking need it. Like, The classes thing, I don't really subscribe to anymore. I don't really believe
Hierarchies.
that,
No.
there's like,
Hierarchies in general are bullshit.
yeah, and I don't know, dividing people amongst class for it's a dangerous path. It's a very dangerous path, because who then decides who is the true working class and who's the lumpen proletariat and who's the fucking immigrant laborer and this and that and who's
The middle peasants.
yes, who's the peasant, right? Like, they still use that fucking word for a reason. They fucking wish to have you as their dumb fucking peasants, right? Like, they don't let fucking, like, the whole classes ideology is not really a good one. I don't think anybody can be driven to do very evil things, and I don't give a shit about.
That's a solid point too, because really, you're like, people talk about class identity all the time, but you look in history and you've got examples of, like, Buddha, for example, right? So you could label him like up in the upper echelons of society or whatever, his family, but he rejected that, turned his back on all that, and went to go find out why people were suffering. Because back then, like, that was a big thing. People didn't do that. They were stuck in, and again, this goes into the outrage against the caste systems as well, and a bunch of this, but it just kind of shows you, it's like when we apply these labels to ourselves, we manifest it.
Yes.
Yeah.
If we give breath to class and divide ourselves along those lines, then we don't see the humanity in anyone. Then we're stuck in our group again, where if we go against the group, then you bring in more relativism into that, and it's just like a recipe for chaos.
Like, I'm not saying that there's working people of the world that, like, have every right to fucking exercise self-defense against their fucking oppressors, right? Like, I'm not saying that that's not a fucking thing. But as far as, what is it called? Strategizing? I don't know. I can't remember what it is. But when you fucking pull things apart, right? Like, I think that's a
Domesticate.
part. Yeah. Like, it's a very dangerous ideology to follow, because then you can create an us and them, and then the them keeps growing, because if it's an us and them, most times it's vengeance, and you can't fucking, it's not justice, it's vengeance. And then when vengeance takes over, all bets are off. Like, that is, like, Gloria will appreciate this. Sharks in a feeding frenzy. That is something that humans do too when they're on the path of vengeance, right? And very innocent people can be caught in that crossfire. I don't like that shit. Like, especially if you're empowered by, you're the correct class that needs to fucking have a dictatorship over all the bourgeoisie and the blah, 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 blah. Well, who decides who's the fucking bourgeoisie, and who decides who's truly working class, and who's going to be the decider? Is it, like, it's a
Who's
danger.
the author for that authority? Yeah.
Like, authority is dangerous like that, because then you have, because the moral relativism of it is, I am moral and righteous because I am working class. I cannot commit crimes against these filth bourgeoisie, right? Like, I think that's fucking, there are fucking filth fucking people.
I mean, I'm just like,
but
yeah, well, that's sorry.
No, like, there's filth people out there, but, like, let's not fucking go into a feeding frenzy over it and just, like, start ripping apart anything that's around us.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Unless if it's a major bank and you're the Haitians protesting right now.
You can exercise your self-defense. And what they're doing, I think, is totally fucking legit. Mm-hmm. But once that struggle is ended, the authority that they're exercising needs to end, right? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, no, I get it.
I'm really tempted to bring this up because Jake was saying that we think that MAGA are all rabid nationalists that are, like, all
no.
When did we say that?
Right. When did we say that, Jake?
There's plenty of fucking fine people that got cucked by the MAGA movement.
Yeah, exactly. Well, meaning people that got tricked. And I was pointing this out over a year ago, back in after January 6th, shortly, still in January of 2021. But you know who was calling people insurrectionists. You know who was calling MAGA insurrectionists, and I can show you guys the evidence of that right here. Because I was on a live panel with Ricky Rantz, Colin Akbona, and Jackson Hinkle, and one of us, it wasn't me, one of us was calling the protesters there insurrectionists. But also, that same person was refusing to interview Magnus. Magnus from Magnus Penvidia, the Boogaloo Boy. And he also was shaming somebody for being friends with a conservative. Now all of a sudden, when it becomes popular, when there's some big bucks to make to cater to that audience, the right-wing audience, they change their tune. And they're promoting this new hashtag, right?
Yeah.
That kid is a fucking... He's in it for the money.
Yeah.
Would you guys say this is genuine growth?
No.
Well, okay, so...
It would be genuine growth if
universe,
you explained why they were wrong and what caused them to change their mind. But that change is never explained. Why did they change their mind? I always tell people when I change my mind. I explain to people how I grew. But if there's not really an explanation and you just see a certain pattern of behavior of this person always searching for more clicks, then maybe the change in behavior isn't genuine.
Yeah, like...
That's a great point.
That dude... he told me once in his chat, well, just because they didn't succeed, it wasn't an insurrection. Like, all fucking that condescending fucking frat dude tone. Well, just because it didn't succeed, it wasn't an erection, an insurrection. I said erection. So yeah, like, fuck that kid, man. Like, but the whole fucking MAGA communism thing, like, I told people very fucking loudly this Pat Sox shit is gonna fucking get out of control, and it's gonna cross the border from being patriotic into being a nationalist, and nationalism is not a fucking tool that you want to use. And you're just being divisive. You're just fucking not. I'm like, okay, sorry, I won't fucking tell you anything you don't need to hear anymore. And then what the fuck happens? It becomes National Socialism. Yeah.
It's absurd on levels that I don't think we're ever going to be able to comprehend.
Shadow's little giggle.
It's my favorite.
It's so fucking asinine, dude. Like, this is fucking... I've seen this movie before, right? And usually it's actually...
We reviewed this movie.
Yeah. Like, if you look at all the fucking worst fucking dictators throughout history, they were all fucking started out in fucking media doing newspapers, right? Like, they all had to have their own little fucking media spot. Strasser was...
So you guys,
fucking wonderful.
You guys want to leave the audience with any like final messages? By the way, it was a great conversation I had with you guys. We need to do more of this stuff. Talk about natural law,
Absolutely.
what's going on in the world, and all that.
I'd say for anyone wanting to get more into natural law, the people that I would check out, and again, question all these people. I have my own issues with them all, but I would look at from Australia, Tom Barnett. Beth Martins is another good source, as well as Mark Passio is probably who I would start with, just because not just because ideology, like in thoughts and ways and how we look at things, we're kind of similar in some areas, and he's also works in IT, so it's just kind of hilarious when only I can understand the examples he gives. But he's got massive videos, so look up like Mark Passio's. He's got a Occult video as well, but he's also got a natural law series, and someone's done a condensed version of that. But really start to like, what I like about Tom Burnett's ones is that you can see him, he's talking to an audience, so you get to hear questions and feedback. That's a little bit more informative if you want to get into the commerce side. But really, the biggest part about natural law is realizing that the power is with you. You have the right to reject or accept any offer given to you. No one can take that. If you're forced, that is the definition of under duress. You cannot be forced or compelled to do anything against your will. And remember that. It may be terrifying to take the responsibility, but once you take the responsibility, become empowered.
Absolutely.
Shadow?
I like with what Jack is saying, we all have to work on ourselves if we want to fucking have any type of change. We can't just overthrow the current leader and not fucking change ourselves. We can't just change the fucking the suit, right? Like we have to fucking do some rugged self-work individually and also work against these institutions, right? Like as far as the laws of nature go, yeah, Mark Passio is a really good start, right? But like there's Lysander Spooner, there's Max Stirner, there's fucking there's a conflict between social anarchism and fucking the lifestyle anarchists, right? So like there's plenty of fucking things to read on like
Rose.
that juxtaposition, right? So like Larkin Rose, Murray Bookchin, fucking what's her face, Voltairine de Cleyre. Like these are all fucking like people that are more like intertwined with self-liberation rather than like overthrowing a current class dictator and installing a new class dictator. So like that's the kind of shit that I like to get into and read. But yeah, there's a balance that must be struck, right? We have to learn how to act if we wish to act. And once we act, we have to keep acting in that certain fucking fashion, right? Like we have to operate within the boundaries of the laws of nature. Like we can live in symbiosis. That's what I gotta say about that.
Amen.
Shout out to Meteor Dreams. You've been making some amazing chats. This whole stream has been cracking me up.
Yeah, he's been cracking me up too.
I know. Yeah, don't buy gold, guys, please. It's bullshit. But yeah, I'll leave it at that on that topic. But yeah, final words. I think Jack and Shadow gave some great final words and also recommendations for stuff to read. I mean, like I said, there's so many like good people to follow or things out there that you can learn and research about, as I am trying to do every single day. But like anytime that you can learn more about your environment or learn more about history or learn more about like local history, I believe that it's something that's helping you move towards being able to develop a full picture of a solution in your mind for your community. So, yeah, that's that. Also, I want to give a huge shout out and plug to our Cherokee fam in the chat, Yona Anawati.
Hey, Yona.
In about 50 minutes, he'll be doing a stream, and I'll be on there as well to talk about the Haitian protests, and it's probably going to branch out into broader Caribbean affairs. So yeah, check out Yona Anawati, guys.
Yona Pants, that's my dog.
Yes, I'm on Slow News
Love
Day.
Yona.
I can't forget to plug that. But other than that, yeah.
I do want to ask you guys, like, do you guys have time, like, just like an extra 15 minutes? Because we do have like another guest here who I think wants to challenge some of the stuff we were saying. Is that all right?
Okay.
All right. So I believe this is Jack.
Hello.
Jake.
I'm Jake.
Right?
Jake.
Hey, how's it going, man? Yeah. What's going on?
Doing okay. Just enjoying the night.
Awesome. Yeah, so you wanted to push back on some stuff?
I didn't really want to push back. I just I just wanted to explain that, some people find their understanding of the world through history, some through philosophy, clergy do it through religion, scientists through science, journalism through journalism, and so on, conspiracists through conspiracy. It's just another way of understanding the world. Whether it comes off as a bit kooky, it gets the job done any of these other forms. If you question everything, you'll eventually find the answers. So I think a lot of those people at the Capitol, not necessarily a majority of the people that voted for Trump, but specifically the ones that were at the Capitol, I'd say are a similar level of self-awareness as yourselves. They understood, there is a folly in that instead of putting hope in themselves and doing their own thing, they misplaced all that hope and put it on Trump rather than doing it themselves when they had, I guess, sort of through a distorted lens of conspiracy, recently gained an understanding of America that we had kind of lost, that, we had during the 70s, during all these movements, all this thinking, and that we're sort of gaining back again. And in their minds, that they had no choice but to storm the Capitol because, it's either you go. Let me go into a little history. We had the 70s. We had thinkers like Noam Chomsky. I don't know. The libertarians love to bring up Milton Friedman. But then, hard times hit. There's an economic downturn. People had less time to engage in thinking. The FBI cracked down on a lot of these movements. And then neoliberalism and neoconservatism was born, sort of. I guess you can call neoliberalism in some form of economic fascism, and neocons fascism. I guess that's a fair assessment. But that sort of formed out of the economic strife of the 70s and the oil crisis and all that. And a lot of these thinkers were kind of written out of history. And I sort of see that as the moment where the bureaucracy in America, the World War II bureaucracy that we inherited, kind of solidified itself and rooted itself down so tightly that it's not really able to be changed by human input as it was to some degree in the Kissinger era. That's why we're stuck with 80s policies, 80s laws, 80s bureaucracy. It's sort of drilled in. It's like a machine sort of running on autopilot. And at that point, the only thing you can do is dismantle that machine because you can't change it or adjust it. It's been drilled down too hard. So that was kind of the goal in mind with a lot of people storming the Capitol, that Trump was, at least to some degree, even though he was, I guess, heavily co-opted, as most presidents are, just listening to their advisors, was a threat to the establishment or the bureaucracy. And
I don't think anyone here like thinks that they were like rabid nationalists. Like just like, we can understand where they're coming from.
That's not what we were talking about.
But I think they were all
listening to Marjorie Taylor Greene outside of what the New York Times has said about her, because as strange as it is, the person that was talking about Jewish space lasers has the best understanding of the military-industrial complex of anybody in Congress. I mean, it's interesting, and
it's fascinating to watch her talk. Yeah.
Well, just because someone is opposed to one thing does not mean that they're the good guy. There can be multiple bad guys.
I think you should take a closer look at some of these people. I think you've misjudged them. I think you've
Which people are you referring to?
Just like that crazy shaman guy. I don't think he was a rabid nationalist.
I think he got tricked into doing something.
No.
But if you're referring to politicians like Marjorie Taylor Greene, then I have the same stance with her as I have with AOC and all these other
I think AOC is very genuine, but she's very young and very naive, and at the moment is
I think
towing the
she's
line.
really
That's being too
self-interested in her
kind.
career,
And a little bit-
same thing with Marjorie Taylor Greene and all these other politicians. They're interested in advancing their careers.
I have to disagree there. I'd say there's probably in Congress, I'd say there's probably 3 politicians. You could say whatever you want about their personalities, but that come across as being genuine. At least ones that are in the public sphere and don't toe the line.
I mean, it's all an act.
Yeah,
that aren't
more
acting.
politics ain't it, man.
I'd say like in the Senate, I'd say even though I'd say it would be Bernie Sanders and Rand Paul. I think you can understand that Bernie is not-
even there still, Rand Paul and Bernie
Yeah, even
Sanders
they're
are both
pretty cocked.
acting.
No, man.
They're acting to advance their career, and at the end of the day, the legislation that's introduced,
They-
all of
they-
it is written by the
Politics.
lobbyists.
No,
They
They
don't have real
They
control.
toe the line. Well, Bernie has started towing the line since 2016, but before that, no, he did not toe the line. He consistently stood by.
I'd
his
say it's after
principles. He was
his loss in
hypocritical
the
sometimes.
89 race, when he made the deal with the Democratic Party that they would not send someone against him as long as he voted with them on major pieces of legislation. I think his voting record, especially Kosovo, his vote to go bomb, that was what turned me off on Bernie. But again, like I don't think any of these politicians are the answer to anything personally.
I don't think
There were many.
people got
There were many.
Trump thing. I don't think it's a real
I'm not
fucking,
an expert. Oh, sorry.
like fucking hero worship aspect to it. 1 and 2, it fucks with nationalism, and a lot of people are struggling because they don't have a fucking person that they don't have an individuality. They don't know who they are, so they attach themselves onto these group mentalities, right? Like fucking nationalism or fucking I'm a fucking Eagles fan or whatever the fuck. Is there other sports? Yeah, there's the I'm a Heat fan or whatever the fuck. So like there are these all these collective identities that people that people get wrapped up into, and when people fucking obsess over that shit, and they have like
Oh, it's annoying. It's annoying.
yes, she is.
Very annoying.
But like when you start to obsess over that and you try to force your newfound religion onto other people, whether it's in the form of politics or it's in the form of gods or it's in the form of whatever the fuck, right? You want to replace the statues of Jesus with statues of Stalin? Cool, whatever. That's all the fucking same, bro. Like
I think you're
not it, man.
I think you're lumping. I think you're lumping the people you might interact with at these rallies with the shaman guy. The shaman guy, he had schizophrenia, and someone did an interview with him in prison, and the thing the guy was laughing, but the thing he kept saying is like, everything he's saying is really it's just a little off, but it's so close to the truth. And it really was.
Yeah.
Like the FBI, the CIA, they prey on people like that, and they get them all fired up to fucking get into this. I
don't think you understand. The only crazy shaman has just as good an understanding of the CIA as yourself.
Like you have 100,000 people at a rally that just get whipped up into a feeding frenzy, right? Sure. Like that happens in the mob rules, right? Like, and then everyone starts to lose all the crowd.
So Jake, none of us here are saying we can't talk to these people. What we're saying is we can't attach ourselves to labels.
And judge her by the actions. It might surprise you.
Who are you talking about?
Crazy space lasers.
Dude, I read the legislation.
Who are you talking about?
None of those politicians can fool me with what bills they pass.
And then the facts, I could go into the research on her as well, but
I think so. You're not able to analyze a person's personality and tell if they're being genuine or not, or if they've been.
They can. Dude, I'm a fucking recovering drug addict. I come from a world of liars, cheats, thieves.
I was helping in counseling of people to getting off of very hard substances. So I've been lied to by many people. Yeah.
The thing is, people
fuck that shit. No way, dude. Like I understand when I'm being lied to, and when I read the legislation, and that's the proof that they're lying to me, like.
All legislation at the end of the day is to serve the people who write it.
In all of the people I've brought up by name, I'd say they have at least the potential to
Legislation
portray
that
themselves honestly and be willing to go out on their own and not toe the line. The potential, at least.
Okay, I can see that, but they
Those
don't
as-
do it.
But they haven't reached
Yeah.
that potential right now.
I think Bernie sort of did, ish back in the
No,
day.
we just had a lot
No,
of hope in him.
One action.
It wasn't one action.
Kosovo was one. He also signed the second legislation for the second AUMF. People brag about him not signing the first one, or it might have the order around, but it's also
not
his
really-
voting on increasing the military budget many times. There's a great article on Bernie is not anti-war.
You mean?
Type that in.
Bernie the Bomber's Bad Week. You should look that up.
Yeah, there you
From
go.
the 90s, he
Yeah.
was there to take power away from third parties. He was going to
I
vote and act like a
understand, but
Democrat.
He had staffers quit
sometimes
over
he
his
just-
Kosovo vote.
Yeah, dude.
if you listen to him
Bernie's
speak,
been a
like,
sellout since the 80s, man.
listen to what he said after the Cold War in 1992. Who are you
I
going
don't
to
know what he
attack?
said. Like,
They can
I'm
say the
not
right
arguing it
thing,
cannot be
but at the
great.
end of the day,
People
their
say
actions are
anything,
still
yeah.
there to
So
support
what do you
the
think about the
ruling
Cold War?
people.
I can
What's your
tell you
view
that
on
I'm
it?
your best friend while I'm picking your pocket.
I understand, but
And
what
I
do
can
you
be very
think about the Cold War?
convincing about it. Like,
So,
I read the actual legislation that comes out, dude. Like,
doesn't
there is nothing in those bills for regular people. You get barely scraps
yeah.
sometimes, but it all goes back to the monopoly corporations.
I at least appreciate the honesty, even if they are being hypocrites. And that's just
He's allowed to say what he's allowed to say.
Yeah.
He's a spoiler, right?
All right, guys, I'm going to end it here because I
What do
do
you
got to
think
head
about the
out.
Cold War? Let's
So
just
yeah,
go there.
thanks Jake for coming on. I'd love to do more things like this where some members of the
You
audience
guys
who
have
are,
become a little cynical,
are
like the Haas guy who's created this.
some
magic
people who
combo.
are pushing back on the comment section. If they feel brave enough to come on, then you can come on, because a lot of people think similarly to Jake, and then we can talk about the evidence. But unfortunately, it was at the end of the stream, and we can do this again later on.
Mad one
But yeah,
less thing.
take care, everybody.
You can have a
Stay
conversation
informed.
with